Life can be chaotic. If you're running a retail business, don't let disorganized order fulfillment add to the chaos. Use ShipStation instead. With ShipStation, you never have to worry about shipping and fulfillment again. Whether you're running a business out of your garage or you have multiple warehouses, ShipStation is ideal for every phase of your business's growth. Save time with one login for all your stores and by automating repetitive tasks. Plus, you'll save money with the best shipping rates from global carriers. ShipStation's industry-leading features help you deliver a better customer experience. They'll get accurate and faster shipments along with automated tracking updates with your branding. And with up to 88% off UPS and USPS rates and up to 90% off FedEx rates, ShipStation is the fastest and most affordable way to ship. Calm the chaos. Switch to ShipStation today. Start a free trial at shipstation.com/audio. That's shipstation.com/audio.
Welcome to the Dynasty Dugout Show, a podcast covering all things minor league baseball. Get a front row seat to the action with everything you need to know about the future stars of Major League Baseball. And now, here's your host, Chris Clegg.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday. It's another good day to talk baseball. We're here to break down the Boston Red Sox farm system. It's going to be a lot of fun today. The system is really, really good. Good morning, Skylar. Good morning, everybody in the room. Appreciate you joining us on this fine Tuesday morning. It is the Dynasty Dugout Show. We are going to talk baseball. Yesterday, obviously, was another great day for spring training. You talk a couple prospects, obviously, because this is a prospect show. Will Warren, he was pretty solid. He didn't get the results that I think we hoped for. He did walk 3 batters, but Warren showed some really nasty stuff. He had 25 inches of sweep on the sweeper, 20 inches of fade on the changeup. Some really, really good stuff there with Will Warren. So with Garrett Cole, no clue what transpires there, but obviously the MRI results are in. They haven't released them yet, but we'll see what happens there. So hopefully the best for Garrett Cole, because Cole is elite and it's always good when Garrett Cole is on the mound. But the Yankees could go sign Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery, but I also think that Will Warren is a realistic option to toss, 15 starts with him, maybe. We'll see. But Luis Hill was also really good. He had a ton of whiffs. He threw 36 strikes and 49 pitches, which is uncharacteristic of him. He just hadn't been healthy. He's missed most of the last 2 seasons. He's thrown 29 total innings since 2021. So Luis Hill will be interesting to follow as well. Reese Olson, I know he's not a prospect, but I'm really infatuated with what he's doing and how he looks. He is really, really good, and I think he's going to be a really good arm for Detroit this year. I keep saying it, but Jackson Merrill is going to break camp with San Diego. Graham Pauley also probably breaks camp with San Diego. Both have been really, really good this spring, and they have worked their way into the lineup, which is crazy, but here we are. Merrill's still 20. Pauley's 22, if I'm not mistaken, still. But both guys that will contribute a lot this year. So some fun action yesterday. We're going to talk Red Sox because that's what we're here to do. And let's break it down. Roman Anthony, the first guy to discuss. Obviously, his breakout was pretty incredible last year. He was one that, we had talked about prior. He was one that, I just happened to see some of his prep data and I was like, man, this guy might just have it. And sure enough, Anthony had it. I mean, he was really, really legit. He had a tremendous year. He shows really good plate skills. I will pop up some video on the screen here of Roman Anthony because he's so much fun. And I was just so fortunate to get so many looks at Roman Anthony because he was in Greenville for so long. But you can see the swing and slow motion. I mean, good separation. Obviously, he pounds that one into the ground, but it's a good look at the open face swing there. Here's some from behind the plate. Same pitch. I've got lots of video on Roman Anthony, but I really just think this kid is just he was majorly slept on. He's not anymore, but I do think that there's a special talent here with Roman Anthony. When do we see him? Yeah, I think later this year. I wouldn't be shocked if he's up late 2024. Probably does not exhaust prospect eligibility. If I had to guess, I would think that he probably, they're going to keep him down long enough for him to make a run at 2025 Rookie of the Year. This is a 6'2", 200-pound athlete. I think he's taller than the 6'2" list. I mean, you look at him and he is pretty tall, in my opinion. He's very athletic. He moves really well. He doesn't chase out of the zone. He, 18% chase rate last year, really, really good. It did trend upward toward the end of the year. He did show some struggles with breaking balls, which was the only vulnerability that we saw. And he began to get to see those more and more as starts went on. Like as he was later in the year, he was getting more breaking balls down. And he was even getting thrown breaking balls to his back foot, which he did show some struggles with. But he still made zone contact at 85% rate, which is really good. He has big exit velocities. He put a EV up at 112. He hit a ball 440 to the pool side, like it was a monster home run. And he has plenty of opposite field power too. People were kind of like, oh man, this guy only hits homers to the opposite field. This is not good, which is just weird to think about when we're looking at Roman Anthony because he has power to all fields. And I take that as a really, really good thing. So with Anthony, I think you've got a well-rounded profile of on-base skills. You've got power, and ultimately you've got some speed too. He was just 19 years old last year. So I think that the best could still be to come. He'll be 19 until May, so he'll start the year as a 19-year-old and then be 20 for most of the year. Impressive build, long legs, solid upper half. Very, very good player in Roman Anthony. But what about Marcelo Meyer? He is one that, he's had some struggles. There were times where he flashed being a really, really good hitter. He obviously always showed a really good glove. But there were times where he rolled over a lot of balls. There were concerns about, where does the hit tool lie? Because this was supposed to be a high hit tool type. And there were some major struggles with the hit tool from time to time. So ultimately, when you look at Marcelo Meyer, I do think that injuries probably affected him here. And I'm looking for a good video on him. I've obviously got a lot, so let's pop one of these up here. I really think that for him, this was a issue with injury. He showed some really good signs. He smoked this ball, which Evan Carter run like a deer out there and tracked down in single A. But he did a lot of good things. It was a mixed bag of results, I will say, for Marcelo. But when he was on, he was really, really good. The power did take a step forward last year before the injury. He had a 103 mile an hour ninth percentile in 2022, and that jumped to 105 in 2021. That was in 2023, excuse me. The contact rate was also much improved. It was a question mark coming into 2023 as he had a 78% zone contact and a 68% overall contact rate in 2022, but that jumped. The overall contact rate jumped 6 percentage points before the injury to 74%, and after the injury, it was 71%. Prior to the shoulder injury, which happened on a slide on May 7th, he was slashing 337, 414, 582, and after that, he slashed just 190, 253, 366. The strikeout rate jumped 6 percentage points. The contact rate fell 3%. I do think Marcelo Meyer is a decent player to target. I think that he's one that's a little bit slept on And ultimately, you could get him pretty cheap in a dynasty league. And I think that there are still better days to come. He's one that he's obviously the glove first. I saw him make a ton of good plays at shortstop. He's very advanced. I do think will be fine. I think the bat comes back around this year. If you saw him yesterday, he doubled in his first spring at bat, which was encouraging. It's all about health with Meyer. And I think he gets back on track. And I think that ultimately he becomes a really good buy. Let's talk about Kyle Teel. He obviously was a major faller in the draft. I don't think the Red Sox expected to get him where they did. And he fell to 14. And it was an excellent bargain for the Red Sox. I mean, he had an incredible year last year. I mean, he came to Greenville and skipped every other level, and he was impressive. He gets a pretty long stride, good separation, and he's very quick out of the box. I mean, you can see him here. I mean, he uses a lot of his lower half. He's not a big player by any means, but he does make it work. I mean, there's a lot to like here in this profile, and he shortens up. You see him shorten up there with 2 strikes, and I think that's a really big thing. The contact is really, really good with Kyle Teel because you see he's taking the longer stride without 2 strikes, and he's trying to do some damage. But then when he gets to 2 strikes, he's shortening everything up. He's just going to make contact. Pretty simple toe tap kind of movement there. And ultimately, Teel is, I'll say, he's the real deal. Huh. Good joke in there early this morning. Yeah, he had a little bit of the baby Soto shuffle, which I like a lot. So, Teel is going to be up quickly. He's fast-tracked already. He made it to Double-A to end last season. Bat-to-ball skills, really good. His OBP skills, incredible. He does not chase often at all. And ultimately, I think the power comes around. Everybody thinks that he doesn't really have any power, but you saw he has some quick hands through the zone. The bat flies through. I think there's 15 to 20 home run pop in this bat. You look at the exit velocities. I know that was going around when Baseball America posted the average EVs of the top 100, and it wasn't great for Teel, but ultimately, this is a guy that, he is going to get to power. He got to power at Virginia. Ultimately, I believe that there's power in this bat. I've seen it. He's a great athlete. He's got a lot of great things going for him. And he's so athletic that he's going to steal bases. Like that's what you're going to get at the catcher position. Like he's going to steal bases, which I think is huge. And so he's someone that I would keep a really close eye on. And I think that he is a great buy ultimately. Talk a little Ceddanne Rafaela, who is still prospect eligible. He is just incredibly good across the board. He's an elite defensive center fielder. He's got a big arm. He's got speed. He does everything well. This was the first time I actually heard of the name Ceddanne Rafaela. This was opening day, 2022. I had no clue who this guy was. And this was Everson Pereira up at bat. Trey Sweeney's at first. So Pereira pokes this one out to center. Rafaela hoses Trey Sweeney, but out by like 6 steps. This is the first impression I had of him. I was like, who is this kid? He flew around the base. I think he stole like 6 bases on a weekend series. He hit for power that next week. And immediately I was like, man, this guy is somebody. Like I was just I know the video doesn't really do this justice, but for him to make this throw, like he hosed Sweeney by a lot, and it wasn't particularly close here. So that was obviously really fun to see. And when I saw the power coming, like I was like, dang, like he hit some home runs, and he's a smaller guy, but he really hit some home runs where I was like, okay, there is some raw power in this profile. He's one that, I think is going to get some more sneaky power than we might think. But he's going to steal bases. He gets really good jumps on the base paths. He's going to put a lot of balls in play. So I know he chases at a really high clip, but he makes contact. He controls the zone well, and he makes things happen like consistently. He was just really impressive in my looks in Greenville. Obviously, we know that he's much more advanced than he was in 2022. when he was in Greenville. But Ceddanne Rafaela, I just believe, is going to be a guy that ultimately maybe runs lower batting averages, runs lower OBPs, but the power's there. I mean, he hit 104 mile an hour, 9th percentile, which is above MLB average last year. He hit 22 home runs, which followed up 21 in 2022. And he steals bases. I mean, he stole 28 in 2022 and 39 in 2023. The aggressiveness obviously is going to hurt him, but I think that he's someone that is going to be or have enough power and speed to counteract that, where I'm not overly worried about what he does as far as batting average. Hopefully we see him up on opening day. I think there's talk where he probably potentially starts in the minors, which would be interesting, but ultimately I'm still in on Ceddanne Rafaela for sure. As is Miguel Bleis, who weird year for him last year. Obviously, he was very hyped coming into the season. I thought we'd see him in Greenville. We didn't, obviously, because he was injured pretty quickly. And ultimately, there were some concerning things about the profile. He had a rough offseason coming in 2023, is what I was told. The Red Sox weren't thrilled with his work ethic and his work in the offseason. And the hype faded really quick because, he was a $1.5 million signee. He had an incredible complex in 2022. He slashed 301, 353, 543. He had 23 extra base hits in 40 games. The exit velocities at 18 were through the roof. 104 mile an hour 90th and an 89 mile an hour average at the complex as an 18-year-old, which are above MLB average already. So you look at his profile, he steals bases, he's athletic, but he is kind of a free swinger at times. He doesn't take many walks, but he puts a lot of balls in play, kind of reminiscent of Ceddanne Rafaela, but not as bad of chase, makes more contact, has more power. I think the big question with him is, what does Miguel Bleis look like coming back this year? Obviously, the shoulder injuries, a lot can happen with that. And we will see what the profile holds, but there's still tremendous upside here with Miguel Bleis. And he is somebody that I do think I want to invest in, despite the off-the-field concerns. I think this is just a young kid who has enjoyed his teenage years. He didn't have a normal teenage life, didn't have a normal college life. And, we can say that for any of these guys, but ultimately, I mean, for Miguel Bleis, he got a big bonus. He came stateside. He's kind of living the dream. So I think the talent here is legit. It's just, where does this settle in at? Like, what does he end up looking like? And I don't know. I think that question is still to be determined, but he looked bigger this offseason. He ultimately has the skills, power, and speed. So I'm really excited about him and the potential there with what he brings to the table. So he's a good upside bet. While you're Abreu, he hit a big home run in spring a couple of days ago against the Twins. I'll pop up that video. He's a really fun one. I think he's one that really flew under the radar for quite some time. And
Abreu 2 for 7.
Why he did. But Abreu does have really good skills. He's smaller. Like, he's 5'10", compact, 215, but he can pack a punch. I look at his numbers in AAA and I say, man, this guy just completely flew under the radar. And ultimately, I think that he's someone that is going to play every day. And I think that he's going to be a really solid contributor. I mean, last year had a 90 mile an hour average EV. He had a 104 90th and a 50% hard hit rate, which are all much better than MLB average. He hits the ball at ideal launch angles. He had a barrel rate north of 12%. He's very disciplined, and he doesn't chase often at all. Solid zone contact rate here with Abreu. And so ultimately, this could be a profile that I think is really sneaky. I think that the defense is really good too. And he doesn't get talked about enough. I hope, as Skylar said in the chat, that he doesn't end up in a platoon role. I mean, the Sox, you never know. Like, they're doing some interesting things right now. And so I'm curious as to how this plays out and what happens here with Abreu. But I do think that he's really, really good. And I think the talent is there for him to play every day. You know, I think that while there were the platoon concerns, he had a 739 OPS against lefties last year, which is passable. So I don't think that's a number that's like, oh man, like this guy is definitely in a platoon. But we shall see. I'm interested to see how this situation plays out, but I do like him a lot. Let's talk about a little Blaze Jordan, who is a interesting profile, to say the least. You look at him and you might expect more power out of him, but the interesting thing is the exit velocities kind of took a hit last year, and he did some things with the contact. Like, he kind of sold out his power for more contact. It's interesting. I mean, I'll pull up a video of him mashing off of Chase Hampton and some open face swings as well. But when we look at the profile, like, I'll talk about the underlying data. It's really weird, actually, like, who is Blaze Jordan. This is Chase Hampton breaking ball up, all of it for Blaze Jordan. I mean, he's been famous for a long time. He was mashing 500-foot home runs at the age of 13, which I think is, you know, really the interesting thing. Like, he's that kind of legend in the minds of many, and people expect him to be this big power guy when he came up and got drafted. But ultimately, the profile changed. From 2022 to 2023, he saw his contact rate jump 6 percentage points from 71 to 77%. The end zone contact rate jumped from 81 to 85%. In the process, the 9th percentile exit velocity trended in the wrong direction. It went down. His average EV was just 85 miles an hour, which isn't good at all. But he's hit some of the longest home runs I've seen. I would need to find the video of him just absolutely obliterating one. He hit one that easily traveled 500 in the minors in Greenville. I'm not sure where my video is of him, but here's this. Like, I have this video. Absolutely. Like, it went on that roof up there. You see me back in the backdrop over there. It went over the apartment complexes, over that Greenville Drive sign. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it was the longest home run I've ever seen in person. So this is like a profile that's kind of geared for power, but he kind of sold out the power for more contact. I have some of his open face swings over here. And the other interesting thing to note with Jordan is that he trimmed down. He cut nearly 20 pounds this offseason, looking to be more athletic. And I'll have a better report on him next week, so I'll be down there in Fort Myers. The question is, can he lift enough? Can he pull the ball enough? He is one that is really kind of sold out for like contact, and he's going the other way a lot too, which is pretty interesting. But I still believe that this is a profile that has power. If he combines these two skills, then he could be a really good player. Time will tell. I'm really curious to see, because he has slimmed down a lot. So Blaze, we will watch very closely this spring. And when I see him next week, I think he's in spring breakout too. So that should be a lot of fun. Let's get to some arms, because they have a lot of fun ones. Luis Perales is the first one. Perales is a dude that I think could really take off with ultimately just a little bit better command of his pitches. His stuff is really good. The fastball is really, really good. We'll pop up the video here. With Perales, I mean, your stuff, the fastball sits 95. He throws it up in the zone. But when he misses with it, it's when he gets hit. He allows a lot of home runs. That was his biggest struggle when he came to Greenville, was the home runs. I mean, he's got up to 20 inches of IVB, which is elite. The issue has been location, as I mentioned. The cutter he added this year sits around 90. It's kind of in consistent shape. I do think it's a solid pitch. He throws a slider. It's a little slurvy at times. It can sit 82 to 85 with good shape. He gets chased out of the zone. He throws a changeup just pretty much to lefties, but 85 to 87 with depth. With Perales, I think if he figures out the home runs, then this is a dude that could really take off. I'm pretty excited about Perales still. I have him as my top pitcher in the Sox system, but this could potentially change because they have some guys that I really like in the system as well. But for Perales, I mean, you're looking at a smaller frame, but a big fastball. It's really just comes down to strike throwing. Can he throw enough strikes to be a starter? And I think that's the question with all of these guys in the Sox system is how many strikes will they throw and can they be starters? Hopefully they have kind of, negated that some with trades of, Richard Fitz and David Sandlin, who I also like a lot. But I am just very, very excited about Yordany Monegro, who kind of popped up out of nowhere, but it had kind of been put on my radar pretty early in the season, even before he had pitched in Salem. And so his first start when he got called up to Salem, I was watching very intently. He's emotional on the mound, as you see, but he's got really big stuff. I think it's Abimelec Ortiz here. He really is a fiery pitcher. It's a big fastball. I think he's sitting 95, but he drops off to 92, 94 towards the end of starts, which is kind of an issue, but the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, a 2.06 ERA, struck out 92 batters last year in 65 innings. So really big stuff there with Monegro. You look at the profile, it's like, all right, this guy has all the stuff. The curveball, I mean, that's a big downward moving pitch, but sits between 75 and 80. He throws it back. He kind of works backwards in counts, which is interesting. He goes from starting with a fastball on 0-0 to throwing the fastball 1-2, which is interesting. But I really love Yordany Monegro and what he brings to the table. The emotion is just, it's there. He pitches with a high intensity. He throws a slider on occasion. I'd really like to see him develop the slider and change further. I think that'll be pretty telling. I'm really interested to see, what he looks like next week when I'm in Fort Myers, because I do think this is a guy that has potential to add to this frame. He's 6'4", 180. He has the raw stuff. It's just really the strike throwing with him. And will he throw enough strikes? And you see, he made Abimelec Ortiz look silly there several times. And Ortiz is a really, really good hitter. So, the stuff is there. I think I got 4 or 5 Monegro starts last year after he came to Greenville. So he's a really fun one to watch. As is Wickelman Gonzalez, who he's one that's kind of hit or miss start to start. There will be times when he is really, really good and he looks just insanely nasty. But there's others where he just doesn't have it at all. The command comes or goes. He ultimately struggles to throw strikes in some starts, but still, the raw stuff is there. He had 168 strikeouts in 111 innings last year, which is really, really good. I mean, the stuff's improved every year. The ERA last year, 3.96. Yeah, I mean, it's also worth noting that through his first 4 starts, 15 earned runs in 8 2/3 with 16 walks. But Alex Spear mentioned of the Boston Globe, great reporter, that he was dealing with anxiety early in the season. He wasn't sleeping at all. He wasn't eating at all. And it was affecting his performance. The team put a major focus on his mental health, and then the results followed. Over his final 21 starts, a 2.98 ERA, averaged over 5 innings per start, and he had a 36% walk rate, or strikeout rate, not walk rate. That'd be very bad. The walks in command were still an issue, but there were strides. The fastball was holding deeper into starts, which was encouraging to me. You look at the secondaries, the curveball is really good, sitting in the upper 70s. It's got a lot of downward action. He throws a slider and a change as well. I think there's an upside of a mid-rotation starter with Wickelman Gonzalez, but he will need to work on refinement of his pitches. I do think that if he goes to the bullpen, this is a back-end guy. So he could pitch like as a high-leverage reliever if he doesn't work as a starter. But I am really interested to see, what does the profile look like as a starting pitcher? Wasn't able to find any of my video for some reason on Twitter, but I have to go back. I have several of his starts early in the season, but let's keep rolling. Talk a little Richard Fitts, who they traded for this year. Actually did not get to see him. I never saw any of his starts live, but there is interesting stuff here with Fitts where he took a step forward, I thought, with the strike throwing, and he really looked like that he could stick as a starter. I'm interested to see if that is the case, because the Red Sox, I believe, could really work something here with Fitts. The strike throwing did improve last year. He has good stuff. I mean, the fastball, actually, the velo ticked up throughout the year, which was interesting to see. I mean, he went from 91 to 93 earlier in the year to sitting 94 by season's end and topping at 96. If the velocity carries over to this year, then I think that he goes a long way in being a starter. Ultimately, I mean, the fastball shows some cutting action. He throws a slider. It's very in shape, but it's kind of slurvy. It's a two-plane break. The changeup, not thrown very often, 85 to 88. But I think the biggest thing here with Fitts is, how much strike throwing do we see? And can he develop a third pitch? I don't think he can work as a starter with just his fastball and slider, because neither pitches stand out enough to where it's okay, this guy is going to be a starter. But if he refines and develops a third pitch and continues to throw for strikes, I think there's a starter here in this profile. Ultimately, I really like the potential here. I like the move by the Red Sox to get him from the Yankees. They did this trade, they got Greg Weissert, and they also got Nicholas Judice, who I like a lot, for Alex Verdugo. And then you get Fitts in there. I think Fitts slots right in the top tier of Red Sox top pitching prospects. And it would not surprise me if he takes another step forward this year, probably starts in AAA, but ultimately, might finish in the majors. We shall see. Another guy they traded for, which I really love, is David Sandlin. Sandlin is highly intriguing. He is one that, early in the year kind of caught my eye. Made a trip over to Columbia to see him, pop up some of his footage from MILB TV. I have my own video too I will find, but the stuff with Sandlin is really, really nasty, and it only got better this offseason, which is the crazy thing. The fastball already showed good ride. He would sit 96 up. He would throw a good slider. He throws a lot of strikes too, which is encouraging. I mean, we were looking at a 67% strike rate with David Sandlin, which is well above minor league average and MLB average at that. He was so dominant, of single A hitters, and of course, he should be. That fastball was something to be played with it. I mean, he would sit anywhere 17 to 18 inches of induced vertical break. But this offseason, the fastball is now up to triple digits and sitting 21 inches of induced vertical, which is elite stuff. The sweeper, really good when he throws it. He throws a changeup on occasion. I think that the Red Sox got a really good deal here with Sandlin. I mean, I know they traded a good bullpen piece in John Schreiber. They just picked up other bullpen pieces that, are going to immediately slot in and be people that can help now. If they're playing for 2025, this deal makes complete sense. Ooh, that splitter was nasty. Sandlin does throw that splitter often, and when he does, it looks really good. Let me rewind that, because that splitter was so. I think this is it right here. Whew, falls off the map. 89-mile-an-hour splitter. When he throws that thing, he is getting whiffs. So I am really in on David Sandlin. I also love him in the Red Sox system, because the Red Sox have developed arms, and now they've got Breslow's guys in there that have done a great job developing in Chicago. I am very, very excited about Sandlin. Where he starts, I think, is still to be determined, whether it's high A or double A. We'll see. I'm interested to see where they start him. I hope I'll get a couple of looks in Greenville before he does bump up to double A. Regardless, there's 5 really good potential arms here in the system that I really like. And we haven't talked about some fun guys either. So let's talk about some bats. Nick York. York is interesting. I really struggle with who Nick York is going to be. He has consistently changed his stance. It was so simple when he came to Greenville in 2022. I mean, the operation was good. I didn't feel like he needed to change anything. And then he's kind of tinkered with his batting stance, like over and over again. Like, let me show you when he first came up in 2022, how simple it was. It was a simple operation. It was just, easy bat to ball. And ultimately it worked. Like, he made a lot of contact. He hit for power and he hit the ball to all fields well. I thought it was a pretty simple approach. And then he's tinkered and tinkered and tinkered some more. I've got some more video of him somewhere. I've seen him a lot, but it was weird because he came in 2023 and he completely changed everything. And it was like, okay, like, who is this guy and like, who is he going to be? And I think that the question mark is still out on him because he did get hurt. He dealt with a lot of injuries. And then look at him. Here's just a video.
So now there's 2 outs.
Generically, look what he's doing with his hands up there. It's like his hands moved up a foot. And I know he hit a home run there, but it was like there's so many things. And we see him in the fall league. And it's like, all right, the stance is different again. He's going through like 4 different like swing stance changes, which is really weird to me. So, I don't know exactly what's going on with Nick York and what we'll see him look like this year. But man, he was so good when he debuted in 2021. He went through some issues in 2022 with various injuries and illnesses. And then ultimately, like, I thought his 2023 was decent, but it feels like at this point that Nick York's just kind of like 5s across the board. He's not flashy at all. I'm not sure exactly how many stolen bases he provides. Maybe it's 15 home runs and maybe he hits 270. So not the super profile that we thought we were going to get in 2021 when he had a really good year. But ultimately, like, I still like York. I'm not sure exactly who he is long-term, which does concern me a bit. Now, I think this next guy, probably the next 2 guys, soar upwards this year. The first one is Nazan Zentello. They call him Nas. He was their 2nd rounder this summer. He is a very good power and speed profile. He's an elite athlete. He was young for the class. I think Zentello just really pops off. And I know the results weren't great in single A last year, but I don't really care. It's just a small sample in his draft year. I still really believe in Zentello. He ran a 6.3 60, which is, plus or better run times. He's got a really good projectable frame at 6'2", 190. So there's still a lot to like on that frame. He was a great athlete. I think there's a chance that he's a 5-tool type player. I'll get some action of him in Greenville this year. And ultimately, I think that this could be someone that really, really takes off. This is Yoenis Cespedes. I look at Cespedes, and this is a guy that scouts have absolutely raved about. I mean, there's been so many good reports that I have gotten on Cespedes. I mean, he's someone that had an incredible DSL. He has looked good in camp so far. I think that Cespedes probably just continues to soar upwards. There's a video of him hitting a 469-foot home run from the Red Sox player development that I do want to share. Absolutely obliterated. I know that's a hanging curveball, but just mashed. I mean, this kid has all the talent in the world to be a really stud bat. I mean, he signed for $1.4 million in 2023. He's a smaller frame, but he hits the ball hard. He had 25 extra base hits in 26 DSL games, 6 home runs. And he had a 101 ninth percentile, which is pretty good for a 17-year-old. And he maxed at 107. Certainly curious to see what he looks like stateside, but the reports have been really, really good on him. Antonio Anderson, another draftee that I really liked a lot last year. He's a projectable 6'3", 205. He's got a really smooth swing from the left side. good power. He's a switch hitter, good power from both sides of the plate, good EVs, good run times, much like Nas Zentello, really good athlete. I think this frame could fill out enough where he does move to third base long term. You already look, and he's a big frame for 18. And even if he does move to third, I really think the bat will play. So watch out for Zentello and Antonio Anderson this year. Two guys that I am really excited about. Another profile that I like a lot is Zach Penrod, and what a story Zach Penrod is. I mean, we're talking someone that he was a Division II two-way player, undrafted free agent in 2018 when they went 40 rounds. He signed with the Rangers. He had TJ in 2019. The Rangers released him. He ultimately went to indie ball for several years. And, ultimately, like, he was so good that the Red Sox took notice. They're like, all right, this guy has something. And man, they were right, because I think that Penrod has all the stuff in the world. He looked really, really good in the looks in Greenville. He looked good in the AFL as well. I was really excited to see, his strides, and was very impressed with the looks I got of him, especially at Fall Stars. So I'm trying to find my video of him. But with Penrod, you're looking at really improved arsenal. I know he's older for the level. He's 26. So it's like, all right, this guy is really, really old to be in minor league ball, especially at lower levels. But the stuff is there. Like, I don't think there's ever been any denying the stuff. And that showed really well for him across all levels. I mean, in Greenville, he had 2.81 ERA, 20 strikeouts in 20 innings. The fall league, really good in 14 innings. The fastball up to 96, throwing strikes a lot. The commands, hit or miss. He throws a 90-mile-an-hour cutter. It's a slider in two forms. It's a sweeper that sits 83, but also a harder slider with shorter Biden action at 85 to 87. Those changeup off the fastball in the mid-80s. Penrod, I think this year will be very telling for him, but he's one that I am very, very excited about seeing what he does this year at the upper levels, the minors, and what a story it would be if he makes the majors and pitches ultimately in Boston. So Chase Mydroth is one that he had gotten a lot of buzz for his early start last year. He's a smaller, stocky guy. I'd bet his list is not right. He's probably 5'7", 200 plus. He's very stocky, but he makes a lot of contact. He hits this one off the batter's eye. Mydroth is a fun player. He's a good OBP type where I think that hit really well. I mean, he hit for power in Greenville, but he hit a lot of mistake pitches. He got to AA. The slug was lower than the OBP, which he's going to get on base at a very high clip. That's just the nature. He's not going to chase pitches often, and the contact skills are good. Mydroth's actually really good in the field too. So he's one that I think could potentially, play a utility role. I don't see him being an everyday guy. Even though the glove is good, he kind of can play all over the board. It's just the power's not really there. I think he's probably a 10 home run bat, and he's not going to steal bases. So for fantasy purposes, I don't think he's all that relevant. We'll see. But right now, I'm projecting Mydroth as a utility guy that's not all that fantasy relevant. You look, Nathan Hickey is a really solid catcher as well. He's one that, I think potentially could play in Boston. Now, they've got Kyle Teal, but, Hickey is really good skills. He's got some really sneaky pop in the bat, and he's looked good this spring too. He's got a really solid frame. He can throw guys out behind the plate. But Hickey's just a guy that I think is perennially underrated in this system, and one that potentially could play a really solid role for Boston one day. And here's a look at him this spring. I think that, he can hit. He hit against some major league pitching, and He hit really well against minor league pitching too, obviously in the looks in the minors, going to the opposite field there, hitting the ball where it's pitched. He also can get to some poolside pop pretty easily. So Nathan Hickey's kind of one to watch out for. This is Alan Castro, who I think is probably the biggest sleeper in the system. Castro's a very athletic type bat. He's a switch hitter. He shows really good skills from the left side. I think that's where he's more natural, it seems. He does some really good things. Like he plays a good center field. He can play. He's versatile too, which is nice about him. And ultimately with the bat, I think that he's going to grow into more. I mean, he had this monster home run. You can get to look at the open face and from behind the plate here. This was a big home run and just easy pop. He does stuff like this quite often. He's athletic. He can steal bases. So ultimately, that's one to watch out for in the system is Alan Castro, who is a little bit underrated. Some other guys I'm watching closely this year is Mikey Romero, who was the first rounder in 2022. Smooth swing, good bat speed. You know, you look at the batting average in 2023, it was pretty meh, but he made 78% contact, which is really good. He only had 34 games before season-ending injury. I'd watch out for Romero, as I think that he could potentially, soar up boards. I think there's still a lot of potential there. Hunter Dobbins, a right-handed pitcher, I like a decent bit. He kind of burst on the scene in Greenville. He had a 2.63 ERA across 41 innings. He made 13 starts in Double-A, which were really good too. He combined for a 3.67 ERA. Went deep into starts. He threw 5.6 innings per start. Walked just 6% of guys. Really good arsenal as well. So Dobbins could move up. Yonafrin Garcia, one that I'm watching closely, a 2022 signee. He came out in 2023, looked really, really good. So I'm intrigued by him. The bat's the carrying tool here. He may not stick at catcher long term, but one that I like a lot. Elmer Rodriguez Cruz is probably the arm that I'm most excited to watch because he'll be in Greenville this year. He was a fourth rounder in 2021. Tall, lanky arm, 6'3", 160 in Rodriguez Cruz frame. He made 14 starts in Salem. He missed 2 months of the season, though. He was, before the injury, 5 to 6 innings consistently per start. We're looking at a fastball that sits in the lower 90s, topping at 95. But he is a younger guy. I think there is room for growth in Elmer Rodriguez Cruz frame. He has an upper 80s changeup with late drop, and he has a good slider as well. Obviously, some other fun names. The system's pretty deep. Isaac Coffey is a unique arm. Sits in the upper 80s with a fastball, which is the biggest concern, but he is a low arm slot. Let me see if I can find some of the video on him. He is very, very funky and hard to pick up. His release point is really tough, and he gets so much east to west movement. Here's one of him from earlier in the year. He's really tough, and high A hitters really struggled with him because of how unique that he really was. So here's some highlights from early in the season. He did go to Double-A. Watch this arm slot, though. It's a very tough to pick up. The fastball runs a lot, obviously, out of that arm slot. He gets a ton of sweep out of the slider. He can throw a changeup with a lot of fade, too. And there's 3 strikes to Abimelec Ortiz. I don't remember who this was, but he did some really good. Oh, there's making him look silly. There's some really good things to like in this profile. I'm not sure he makes it as a major league starter because of the fact that the fastball just sits in the upper 80s. So a little bit of concern there, but Coffey is a lot of fun. Another Cutter Coffey, shortstop. Obviously, give a shout out to my guy, Christopher Troy. I think he's going to be a potential closer one day. Him or Luis Guerrero, Brian Mata, all those guys could be players that really do take off this year and could be high-end relievers in Boston. Nathaniel Uten, he's an outfielder, very tall and lanky. I would say he is one that I think could really soar up boards this offseason, or this season. It's past the offseason at this point, but he ultimately is a tall, lanky bat who has put up some really good power. Last year, he looked really good at the complex. I'm curious if he fills out the frame a little more, maybe get some looks at him in Greenville this year, but I am intrigued by Nathaniel Uten. A lot of fun names in this system. I could go on and on because I've seen a lot of guys in this system. But I would watch out for Uton this year, Marvin Alcantara, Franklin Arias, Justin Reimer. Those are guys that could really pop off and rise up boards. I think that's going to do it today. Another fun episode. Thank you for joining. This has been another edition of the Dynasty Dugout Show. The Boston Red Sox farm system is a lot of fun. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day.